Boy, oh boy, I love Revit so much. It is Autodesk's answer for architectural design. And if you are using Revit or have an interest in using Revit, I would like to be your personal Revit guru, the Revit guy that you turn to for all of your needs. Happy New Year! Thank you. And welcome to the first session of this year for the Revit Guy, where we talk about all things Revit and assisting you with tips and tricks for content in the new year. Today we're going to be looking at design options and groups in the Revit software, teaching you how to utilize design options to create multiple choices for you and your client to deliberate on, using groups to organize content into easily adjustable areas where you can create multiple versions of them and modify them with different properties. Looking at this floor plan, we will create a group environment, utilizing that group over and over again across multiple office spaces. I have this office laid out as a 19-foot 6 by 10 foot, and the consistency of the spaces to be 10 foot deep in each location will make the group creation very helpful. The consistency of objects when creating groups is very encouraged. It's a best use of the groups, but if they're not, there are ways to mitigate that and work around it. All of the objects in this room I will select as far as the furniture, go up to the Modify tab, Create Panel, and select this option that says Create Group. I'll give it a name, call it Office Area 1, click OK. So notice when I click on the elements of that group, it now shows up where all of the objects are selected at once, and it has a dashed blue line around that location. The groups in Revit work kind of like a block in AutoCAD, where all of the elements are joined together as a single object and can be shifted around and manipulated, keeping all of those objects together. I will now copy and multiply those into each room space, and then we'll utilize how groups are best used in a project. Now, each of these spaces are designed with a single group in each one, and all of the rooms are not exactly the same size or orientation, but this would be very useful to allow us to redesign information or adjust information inside of this space quickly. Selecting this object and choose from the Modify tab, Group Panel, you have Edit Group, Ungroup, and Link. Choose Edit Group, and these are the pieces of information inside of this group. Notice that I accidentally forgot to include the wastebasket, which is not part of all of the other spaces, but that's okay, we can add it later. Going to the Edit Group tab that opened up as a flyout panel, choose Add, and now select this waste paper basket and click Finish, and notice what happens to all of the other existing groups. They now have received that waste paper basket into each one. So you can always make adjustments after the group has been created. Select the group again and choose Edit Group. Now I want to make some modifications. Maybe I want to move this bookcase to be aligned to both sides of the desk evenly. Maybe at this time I want to move this file cabinet to the other side. Maybe I even want to include a duplicate copy of that file cabinet over here. And oh well, I decided that we want to adjust the sofa to now be against this wall. With that design change, it would take a lot more time to redefine all of these spaces with that same design choice. But now that we have created all of these spaces to utilize a group, it makes it so much easier. When I click the green check mark to finish now, notice that all of those spaces have been redesigned with that same adjustment. They are not all going to fit within that redesign, but that could be worked with. Now I will select one of those grouped elements and choose Edit Group once more. Maybe I don't want to include a second file cabinet in every room space. So I'm going to remove it from this group. Choose Remove, select that select that file cabinet. Notice that it grays out. Click the green check mark, and it's still there, but it's no longer part of the group. I can now select that object and move it around wherever I want that to be. I can move it over here to the other side of the room and readjust it. I can move it to a different location in the space according to how it makes sense. And in this room, that file cabinet there didn't make sense anyway. We'll look at this one in a moment. So as you work around, you can see where that information does and doesn't need to continue, but it keeps a copy of that object within each grouped space that already existed, giving you the ability to copy that object into multiple groups at the same time, but then have the ability to manipulate it outside of the group later. Selecting one of the groups, look at the Properties panel and you see where it says Model Group Office Area 1 with a drop-down list is currently the only option. Choose Edit Type, and then I will duplicate this type to say Office Area 2 and click OK. That's the only modification I will make. You can actually add information in here if you wish, for manufacturing information if you want to, but that's all included in the furniture and other elements inside of each group. Click OK. Now selecting this object, it says Office Area 2 is the name of that type. Choose the group again, choose Edit Group. Now I'm going to make some modifications. Maybe in this space we want to remove the sofa and select this office and make a desk and chair, making this a double desk. So as I zoom out and I click the green checkbox to finish, notice that that office is the only one that changed. None of the others have been adjusted because this one is a different name because it's a different type. You can create as many duplicate types of a group as you want to with different modifications. So now that I select this office, I have a drop-down list with 2 choices. That also means that I can click into another existing group and change that to Office 2, and it changes the design, giving you the ability to have multiple design choices within each group type. That way you can have different room types for different purposes or different layouts. You can have a whole catalog of different room layouts, using those over and over again. And when you click on a group, you can have a list of all of those different room types from that same group condition. Clicking on the group again, another option is to ungroup. You only want to use the ungroup option when you want to make sure that the objects are all independent and can be controlled separately now, because this is not able to be turned back into the same group as it was before, giving me the ability to move and adjust everything from that group as individual objects. So it's basically exploding a block or breaking the group apart, and it cannot be turned back into the same group later. Another option is to select this object, go to the Modify tab, Group panel, and choose Link. It says Convert Group to a linked model, and the options are to replace with a new project file or replace with an existing project file. Existing project file is if you already have an outside resource that you want to load in as a link. Replace with new project means I'm going to use the information from this group and create a separate RVT Revit file. I'm going to use Replace with New Project. Click OK, and this creates a whole separate Revit model file, including only the layout for this office. The difference with this is it now creates it as a linked element instead of a group. Notice when I click on this, it says Modify Revit Link. The properties say that it's a linked file, and you no longer have the ability to control elements of the linked file as you would with a normal group. However, this gives you the ability to separate the work process of anyone that can lay out the design of the building or the layout of the room spaces, and someone to control or lay out the design of the furniture and equipment or components inside of the space. So you can separate that labor of work. And you can open this RVT Revit file separately as another user. And that model will only include all of the information from that room. You can see that in a three-dimensional view. And any adjustments that are made will show up in the design once you reload that link. This gives a company the ability to have a designer or colleague or consultant working on the layout of the room spaces in the information of the furniture and components inside of that room outside of their network. All they need is the appropriate space information, such as the size of the room that they are using. And within this linked file, you don't want to include things like walls, because that is part of the main Revit model, but you can include things like reference planes as drafting boundaries, and you can be told that the size of the space is an approximate 10 by 20, and as long as they stay within that envelope, it will fit in your space. And then when you save that file, go back into your project, and then load that linked file back into your model, it will include any changes that are made. That way, members of the team can be working off-site or remotely outside of the normal network environment that would be required if you're using Revit Collaboration, or if they are not using the BIM 360 environment collaborating in the same file, giving you a little more freedom. The groups can be utilized across multiple models, across multiple levels of the building. If this was a 10-story building and all of the office spaces were approximately the same size on each floor, you could use this same group layout over and over again, and it would change the design of each group as things are modified. This is a very useful tool, especially for spaces that have consistent layout designs, such as schools, office buildings, hospitals, anything that would be a very consistent layout over and over again. This will help save time by not having to redesign elements over and over again. Coming back into this environment where these elements are overlapping, as you hover over an object of the group, you can hit the Tab key and select that object separately. And then you see this little icon that says Group Member. Click icon to exclude in this group instance. Select that. Deselect the whole group and the object has been removed or disappears. Continue that over and over again. You are not deleting the object from the group, you're just removing that object from this instance of the group. So this gives you the ability to have that layout, say, serve multiple purposes. In this space, maybe it's just more of a meeting or a group area, and you don't need the desks in there anyway, but the layout of the space makes a lot of sense to just leave it there. You can utilize that over and over again. Maybe in this office, you don't want a desk, but you still want the chair facing the wall. Not that you would do that, but again, those are options that you have at all times. As you select the group, those hidden elements will still show up, and if you make modifications to the group, they will still adjust that group as well. That object is just turned off in that group location and will not be included in counts for the furniture or for components, so they will not show up in the schedule and can be counted appropriately if you are excluding those from that space. You can have as many groups into the project as you want with as many different group types, and each one can be utilized over and over again from the properties drop-down list. In this drawing, we will now look at design options. In this side of the building, notice how the wall is broken at this point and continues down here through the rest of the building. This area above has been laid out with a certain amount of information and comes over here and the line of the wall is broken here as well. Once we've designed this, maybe we've decided that we want to have multiple choices or different design options for ourselves or the client to choose from. You can go to the Manage tab, Design Options panel, and choose Design Options, opening up this dialog box. There's already one design option turned on, and I'll collapse this for right now and create another option set. In the right side, go to Option Set and choose New, which creates Option Set 1, Option 1 Primary. The option set is a category or folder where multiple design areas can be established, and you can have multiple options underneath each option set. Choosing option set 1, I can rename that to something different, calling that back of house. Click OK, changes that name, moves it up in alphabetical order, and I have option 1 listed here. I'm going to click close for the moment, and currently there is nothing in that design option, but I want to redefine some of the information back here. To do that, I actually need to remove the area of information that already exists. One way to do that is actually to push this content that I've already created into a design option. Once you have created content in the Revit software, to move the content into a design option, it's a little frustrating. You cannot just move it by any command or something like that. But what you could do is use a copy paste option. So I'm actually going to select all the content that I intend to shift around or move to a design option. Then go to the Modify tab, Clipboard panel, and choose Cut to Clipboard, which will delete everything that you had to select, but it puts it on your clipboard. You can paste it later. We will now move into the design option that we've just created by going back to Design Option, choosing Back of House. Option 1 is selected, and then choose under Edit, Edit Select. This bolds Option 1 Primary and makes content of Option 1 active. Design options are unique where they are almost a separate model environment, but you can create as many of them in the model as you want, but they are not part of the main model area. You have to work on them separately and individually. Now that I have option 1 active, I will close this design option, and then notice that I cannot select any of the physical model content in this view. It does not let you work with elements that are not in this design option itself. But I'm going to move that content I just put on my clipboard into this space by going back to the Modify tab, Clipboard panel, choose Paste from a drop-down list, and then choose Paste Align to Current View. It will paste it at the exact same location from the view it was located. And now that I'm in the design option, it is pasted in the design option area. So now all of the content shown here is part of that design option number 1. Going back to the Manage tab, Design Option area, and it says design option is still primary. To continue after you've made any edits to design option, you have to say Finish Editing. That will turn the design option off and enable the main model once more. Before continuing, I'll actually close this and notice that when I select all the content in the view now, the content of the main model is now content from the design option is not selected. So you have to be in one set or the other, either the main model or an option set. Going back to the design option panel, under back of house, selecting option 1, I'm going to choose to duplicate this option, which makes option 1 parentheses, I'll rename that to option 1B. The original is still there. I'm just making a design option 1B choice. After creating this and labeling option 1B, choose close. And now I have a duplicate version. Selecting option 1B and choose Edit Selected to make it active. Click Close. Now I have a duplicate copy of the content that I just brought into the design option of the original choice of the design. I now have the ability to make changes that will be another option to choose from, and they'll both be saved for future reference. And these changes can be as big as you want. I can simply select this door, flip the swing, and move it down, and that is a complete change in the design. It's minimal, but it's a different choice. And I can actually go to the design option drop-down list here, and I can see all of the design options available. 1B is active currently. I can also switch to option 1 and notice that the door moved back. And I can easily switch back and forth between 1B and number 1 at any time. Both of them are still intact and available. Whichever one you select from the drop-down list becomes active by default, and then any content you create will be available or placed inside of that design option. So for instance, if I draw walls over here, these walls are now part of option 1B set. If I go to option 1, those walls disappear. So they only exist in this design option currently. Selecting all the content from this area, I will actually rotate the entire wing of this building out 35 degrees. So you've absolutely changed the design of the building, but you can create as many of these different designs as you want. I can even take this wall and say, well, I want that to be rectilinear now, and I'm going to create a new version of it that comes down this way over and then meets back at this wall. When you're working with design options, the walls will have a hard time cleaning up because they are in different environments. As a design option, it's not exactly part of the main model, and there's actually another wall that comes through here in another option set, and Revit knows that and it can still see it, so it does get confused. So while the design options are part of your model, the content will look a little funny and not clean up correctly at the connection points. Same thing over here. There are different ways that you can work around that. If you don't care, it's fine. A lot of people do care what it looks like, and you're kind of stuck until that becomes completely part of the main model. But now that I have this new choice, I can make further design changes. Mirror this wall area to the other side, mirror this wall area, leaving a copy to the other side, and you can continue to refine and redesign as needed, giving you a larger space in here to implement new areas. And once again, this all becomes part of that design. Go back to the Manage tab, Design Options, switch back to Option 1, that one returns, switch to Option 1B, and that was created there. I can also go back to Design Options. Switching into Back of House, you have to choose Finish Editing first to get out of that option. Choosing Back of House, I'll now choose New option down at the bottom, which creates a separate option which is blank. It doesn't duplicate the existing one, it creates a brand new area that's blank. So clicking option 2 and choose Edit Selected, making that one active. Notice that all of the content in the background has disappeared, but that gives me a blank canvas to add any content that I wish. Maybe we now want to have a curved area in the back. And then design walls and other office spaces around that curvature. The design options are also three-dimensional. Again, they are a completely designed building. As much information as you put in the design option will be available in that project. You can create a design option that is simply as different as a door swing or as expansive as an entire wing or multiple stories of a building. The options are limitless, but the amount of information that is included within each design option is stored in the project model and will impact the size of the project file. So while the design options are in the model, they will be taking up memory space, and at some point it will be helpful to decide which design option to go with forward, and then you can apply that into the model for permanent future design, because as it's part of the design option, it makes it much more uncomfortable to work with. And then when you decide to go with a design option, go back to the design option window. Whichever option is set to be primary will be chosen when you add it to your project as part of the main model. So for instance, if I select option 1B, I have to choose Finish Editing first. You always have to select Finish Editing before you can do anything. Choosing option 1B, notice how option 1 says primary. Choosing option 1B, I can choose Make Primary, and then it moves 1B to become the primary option, which will be the default view in every view showing that spec. With each option displayed, you can also go to different views, and using visibility graphics, you can set choices for which design option is displayed within that view. Going to level 1, I have another duplicate view here, so I'm going to right click on that view and rename it option level 1 option 1B. Right click and duplicate that view again, and label it option 2. Go into visibility graphics. When you are implementing design options, you have a new tab in the in the visibility graphics window called design options. Clicking the design options tab, you have each design option set available and the design options to choose from. You can specify which design option and design option set are displayed within this view. Clicking back of house with a drop-down list, I'm going to choose option 2, hit apply, and notice how that design option becomes visible. So regardless of which design option is active, this option will always be displayed in this view because you've set it under the visibility graphics. When it's set to automatic, whichever one is active becomes the default setting. And when it's set to primary, whichever the primary option is also displayed by default. But you can choose which option is displayed in each view separately. And then, for instance, under conference room areas, I have multiple choices down here as well in this area. So I have primary, which is displayed, option 2, which is a different set, option 3 is another set. So you can create multiple views here. Under option 1B, I can adjust that one to be conference room 2, option 1B, level 1, and the active design option to be option 1, and each view has a different display set for it, giving you the ability to add these views to multiple sheets for presentation for the choices that are being decided on between your client or meetings that you're having with your team or your other colleagues. Everyone can weigh in on which choice is best or which changes to make further or to move on with and to develop that option more. Once you have chosen the final design, going back into design options, whichever one is set to be primary, finish editing. Whichever one is set to be primary, choose the main options set area, which is the main heading, where it says back of house currently. Where it says on the right hand side, except primary, that means it will remove the design option set and all of the sub options from the project, and then move the option that you've chosen as primary into the main model area. It will also again delete all of these sub options. Before taking this step, I highly recommend that you make a backup copy of the project as it is right now so that you don't lose any of those options for the future, because later down the road your clients or some other member of the team might say, hey, we want to go back and look at this choice again, and if it's not there or if it's been deleted, then you're stuck. So once you've set option 1B to be primary, choosing back of house, choose accept primary, and it'll give you a warning, again reminding you of this choice, saying that if you accept primary, it will delete all sub options and also delete any secondary views that were created for it, which are the ones over here. If I click accept, it's going to remind me which views will be deleted, the one for option 2, click OK. It removes that option set completely from the project and then pushes the content from that design option into the main model area, and it's no longer available to switch back and forth between the different designs. I still have conference room options in here because that is still a separate option set to deal with. You can have as many option sets and as many options in each subgroup. You can delete options. You can also delete design sets without accepting them into the main model. Again, make sure you're using the right choices here because you could make a very big change that could affect a lot of people if you accidentally delete something. So between using groups, which can also be implemented into design options, and design options themselves, you can create an unlimited amount of choices within the Revit software. Different from an older AutoCAD method that you might have used where you have multiple copies of the same floor plan side by side, each one of those with a different design setting for it. In Revit, because you can't easily copy all of the content side by side without duplicating the quantity of content, this design option is a much easier and better, I feel, option to move forward with different choices throughout the schematic design and design development phases of the project. I hope that you've enjoyed this excerpt from the Revit software with the topics of design options and groups, where Revit giving you the ability to create as many choices and designs that you can think of, that your team can come up with, refine those choices and move forward with the final design, giving your client the freedom and the ability to dream big and make whatever choices that they can think of. And you can show them what that looks like. This channel is sponsored by IMAGINiT Technologies. With over 20 years of experience and more than 100 industry experts, IMAGINiT is well equipped to assist with any needs for software, training, implementation, including Productivity Now, a video training resource for many types of industry-leading software. Check out the available licensing packages at IMAGINiT.com. contact IMAGINiT today and mention this channel to get a special offer. Check out our previous videos below. Comment below and tell us more information you'd like to see covered in the Revit software. Like and subscribe to this channel so you can get the latest updates for each time that we post new videos and tutorials on how to use the Revit software. Don't miss it.